Hi, so with us today we have Ganeshiny Sridharan. She is an undergraduate at the Faculty of Science of University of Colombo and also a really talented graphic designer and an amazing artist. I hope I didn't miss anything. Also, Ganeshiny, actually, we are super excited that you're here with us today. And I remember the first day they told us the news that you were going to do a session for us. Like we went through your Behance account and your Instagram account. And we have been brooding over your artwork and your graphic designs ever since, all of us. So thank you so much for joining and agreeing to do the session for us. So to start things off, could you maybe give us a brief introduction of yourself? And we would also like to know how you got into graphic design.
All right. So hello. My name is Ganeshiny Sridharan, and I am a current undergraduate, UOC, Faculty of Science, faculty next door for you guys. So about that's basically it about me, and how I got into graphic design is basically by lying in a job interview, but they took me in anyways, so I had to learn Photoshop within 2 weeks of being there. So that's how I got started.
So seeing that you got into graphic designing, we all know that the most important part is when planning an event. So how do you actually plan an event? Like how long do you spend times and what sites do you visit to get your inspirations and so on?
So planning, I'd say, is the most crucial part. It actually, puts a difference between a beginner and an expert level graphic designer. So in my case, when I plan, usually I don't really know how it starts, but I just get into the project. I just open Photoshop. So I just get my hands on the project right away. I don't need to, I don't really have a set time. I don't really call anything as a period where I plan how to make a design. So that basically everything starts out in Photoshop, and that's because everything, like when I do anything and everything, I just straight away start it, or like I get dirty right away without a pen and pencil kind of thing. That's because one thing that I lost touch using a pencil and a pen for after so long. It's everything, it's keyboard, mouse. So but due to that reason, I don't really rough out any ideas. So I just get right on. And another reason is because starting in Photoshop, actually Photoshop is actually in a way you don't need to start right away being at a final project. You can just start off as a rough. So Photoshop allows that. No one's going to watch you failing over and over again before you starting. So when it comes to planning, I just start right away with the project. And on places where I get my inspirations from, so that actually varies from time to time. So when I started off as a graphic designer, I got my inspiration from this person sitting next to me. So this person, the co-worker, actually she is a graphic designing student, while I wasn't. I was some random uh, fresh out of school kind of person, and she's like a she's a real graphic designer. So I got my ideas back then just peeping at a computer while she is at it. So I just see what fonts she downloads, what colors she uses, and all sorts of stuff. Then after that, places changed. I used to get my ideas from Instagram, from Behance. So I'd highly recommend these two sites. When you're on Instagram, make sure you follow artists, graphic designers, so you continuously get them on your feed, so you know all about those stuff. And also Behance is a very good place to get ideas and also to get intimidated, both. But that's how you start. Yeah, that's basically where I get my inspiration.
Yeah. And as a sort of a follow-up question, do you ever use mood boards or anything of that sort?
Sorry, do you?
Mood boards.
Oh, mood boards. I think Behance comes with a built-in mood board. You can build a mood board for your project. But by my own, yes, I do sometimes. When I start in a very big project, that is when I do something like an infographic. So when you make an infographic, you really need to piece out your information. You need to research, and you need to know what kind of audience you're going to cater to. And no one's going to stare at a very information dense post with their, it's a free country, they can't do that, like you can't make them do that. So for that reason, you need to really make sure it appeals to a person. So because of that, you need to piece out the information about the styles and everything. So just for those kind of big projects, I use a mood board. So for that reason, basically how I make my mood board is it's a makeshift mood board. I don't know how it works for others. I just open another Photoshop file, and then just paste all the images, text, and everything. So that's basically how I make my mood board. I'm not sure if that's how it works for everyone. Yeah, that's it.
If I could interject, I know this is not a planned question, but so you said that you make mood boards mostly for large projects, right? And not like, obviously for single posts, it's not really needed. So on that topic, like when you plan for big projects, what kind of is the workflow for like concepts per se, not the execution, but when you're coming up with an idea for an entire project, and like that's one of the main parts, right? The logo and what fonts we're going to use, what kind of thought process goes through your mind?
All right, good question. So fonts are my favorite topic to speak about. So like, thanks for asking about fonts. So on big projects, my usually go-to fonts are Gotham, Bebas, Anton, Railway, Poppins, Citrus. So these are the fonts that I immediately go through. These are like always in my recents on my fonts tab. So in any project, that those are the first fonts that shows up for me. So I immediately go to those fonts. But it can change for people. Like you can have a different kind of font, and there are some interesting fonts, like Arthead. Then there is I've seen some interesting fonts like Nessance, Crystal Noir, and all sorts of stuff. So you actually you can have like you have a whole sorts of fonts. When you plan a big project, at the very beginning, I would not recommend you to go deep into what fonts, subjects like fonts are too specific to be there at the very beginning. So when you start off a big project, what I prefer to do is first think about the texture of the project, think about the color of the project, think about how like the sectioning is going to work, how you're going to, where the heading is going to be placed. And so those are the first things that comes into your mind when you do a big project, before you go to something like fonts, before you go to something like the small clip arts or small things, the bullet points and everything. So the first thing that comes into your mind is just those basic parts. So once you get into that is where next, once you're finished with that, you can go to the next, the font phase, the font designing, the font designing on the font, and then the small bullet points and stuff like that. Yeah, that's how big projects are handled according to me. Yeah.
It's interesting because one thing that Dulajaya said, I think you know Dulajaya, he said like the best designers can name the fonts that they use all the time, like off the top of their mind. And you did that, so like that's cool. Okay.
Thank you.
I think we can move on to our next question.
So I was going to ask, what part of the design generally takes up most of your time?
Okay. This is hard to pinpoint to one design, to one part of the process. but usually it's I'd say it's more close to the conclusion, to accepting that this is going to be the final. That's the most difficult part for me, because usually when people talk about the part that takes them the most time, they say that the concept takes them the most time, the piecing out, the designing, the implementation takes the most time, and that's how most of the time it is, which I agree. It used to be like that for me once, but like the more I design, it usually comes to the end. And also, the when you are when you are kind of making a design for someone else, usually the fact checking, the proof checking part of the designing takes most time. Most of the time, it takes more time than you're designing, which is really annoying. It's infuriating, and you get edits over edits over edits, like people telling you there is a small inch you can move the logo so it can be like right there. You have a centering issue. Your picture is a little bit there. There's this one time where like it was like late at the night, and I had to find the perfect color for a certain company's logo and like their merch thing. And actually they were going for a royal blue, like a dark blue. So basically I went to this colors app, and I picked them a dark blue, and they were happy with it at first, and then they were like, what if it's a little bit light shade? So I went for another shade up, and I gave them, and they were like, how about a little bit darker than this? And then basically I went 2 shades below, and then they were like, oh, this is too dark. How about a little bit up? And then I just gave the one that I gave at the right beginning, and they were like, oh yeah, this sounds nice. And like, usually when it comes to designing, the part after the designing would take a little, most likely to be the most longest. I don't know, like the time based on people. Like I think humans usually see their time in a logarithmic scale or something. So the more excruciating you spend your time, the more longer it seems. So for me, the longest in a designing process is towards the end. Like when people correct your thing, when they give you alignment issues, when they see when they give you feedback on stuff. So that's a part of design that takes most of the time. Like on my own, the part that takes most of the time is my own conclusion, because I do the same to myself before I hand it over to them. So it's always towards the end where you get it gets stretched. It like the time gets stretched towards the end than most of the beginning. Beginning is the fun part where you are like very optimistic, you're very creative, you're going to nail this at the very start. It's always towards the end that you get pulled.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Also, like just as you said, how often do you like deviate from your original plan if you have a plan, and because other people say so, or because you feel like it's not working out? And how important do you think flexibility is in any design?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And of course, deviation comes around often, like almost all the time in my case. So, like deviation comes in two places where you get different ideas for the same topic. One scenario is when you are really interested in that certain topic and you have so many ideas to present. You come up with so many post ideas, so not just one would seem like being doing the justice for expressing that idea in a design. Another scenario where you deviate most from your initial design is when you are exhausted, when you're tired, you're out of your idea, and then you just start in a project, and then you scroll through Instagram somewhere in between, and you see another good designer done something really good, and then you are like, why don't I put that in? Maybe that work, kind of thing. So it comes in two places. It comes at the very two ends of the spectrum. The part where you are like really clear of what you really like, creatively overloaded, and part where you are like dried. You're like you don't have that passion anymore, but you're okay with stealing others' idea, kind of thing. No, don't get me wrong. Designing is all about stealing, but then like it comes in two places, right? So in my case, it's like, yeah, the same. I tend to deviate a lot from my initial design. I have done like I can, change my idea really by a lot anywhere throughout the project. So that's how it works for me. So it's natural as a designer to deviate from a plan. Like, I wouldn't call that a flexibility, because flexibility is something different. In here, the deviation that I'm talking about from your initial plan comes because of another idea that you came across and you decided that would be better than what initial. Flexibility is when say you are able to move around elements of maybe the same design or something, so that your design can actually serve different purposes, kind of thing. That's like one design to many purpose kind of thing. That's where I think most probably flexibility comes into play. While your deviation from plan is like you can go like the same concept having many different way of presenting. So in my case, I don't have to deal with being flexible most of the time, because in my idea, where like when someone gives me some kind of adjustment, like maybe make the title go to the left, my mind goes into adjusting the entire document, because that's how it works. Like it's do it all by my own, like, or do nothing kind of thing. So by flexible, I am not the best person to ask advice from. But yeah, that's what I had to say about being deviating and about flexibility.
Okay, I have a small question. So when you earlier talked about like getting feedback and having to align stuff and all of that. So I mean, like the taste of different people are different. So what do you do if like whoever's, let's say your client's taste is different to yours? Like how do you deal with that?
One thing for sure that I won't be happy dealing with them, but then you have to put up with them for you have no choice. So I would do what they say. So always when you get a adjustment, first of all, I would get the adjustment and I would save them in a different name. So I have my original project done, and this new project is where the final everything with the client adjustment goes through. So it might probably end, like if it were just alignment issues, just move this by 2 pixel here, 2 pixel there, that would be fine. I would be happy with that kind of adjustment, because of course that's my human error. Like I haven't seen that alignment being falling into place or something, because like when you screen stare for like a really long time, when you're a designer and you see a screen for like almost like for a couple of hours, you lose that sense of alignment, basically. So to be honest, even my walls are not that aligned, so I'm used to that misalignment by default. So I totally accept if someone gives me an alignment issue. So in a save project, all of those goes in. If your client, if someone else gives you a major adjustment, like make the title, why is the title at the very top, why can't it come a little bit lower, why can't the picture change, those stuff, those in my opinion, that's like an entirely new project. That's an entirely new design. That person who is giving the idea is doing your job, basically. He might as well have the mouse. That's like it's almost the same. Because like as a designer, you are the one who is conceptualizing, who is coming up with the idea. But now it's their turn, as instead of giving the minor thing that need to be adjusted and to give you credit as a designer, they're giving big adjustments, right? They're giving they're changing the entire project kind of thing. So basically they are doing a graphic designer job. So it's always I'd advise to save it in a different name, keep your original save document, and then work in a different copy of the project that you already completed. And small alignments are fine. Big alignments, if you're a person who is giving adjustments to a designer, best avoid giving change of the entire project. That's what I would I'd have to say about that.
And follow-up question, actually, what if your client gives you bad advice? Like they want you to, you said like move it to the bottom, but that would actually go against fundamental design principles or something like that. Do you, what do you do?
So if they're a very understanding client, I would tell them that there might be a problem when it comes to the design when I move it down. So actually, when you're a designer, you have to communicate as well. So it's a really important thing. Like it's good if you have that space to tell them. That's good for them as well. That's good for you, and like that. Another thing is one thing, if someone tells you like a big change in your design, do not always consider ignoring that, because one thing is your design goes to layman people. Your design goes to people who just like comments, like people who say, so everyone, you're a person who's been staring at your project for like hours, but the person who sees your design for the first time has just scrolled past it. So the one who's giving you an adjustment is also such kind of a person who is actually haven't seen the process behind it. He's just seen your, your design just right then and now, and he thinks that there is a change. So I wouldn't tell you to entirely ignore that kind of a thing when your client tells you, when someone gives you an adjustment, like a big adjustment. Maybe consider it, maybe, and also have a little bit of communication. You ask them, why do you think that should be that way? Is there any problem in reading? Is there any problem in understanding? Is the context changing by the placement of that picture like that, or the topic like that, the text like that? So basically you communicate and you get their input, because in the end, everyone seeing the post should be having the same idea as the person who just gave you the adjustment. So consider that too, but also like consider about there's a lot of factor involved. You also have to involve your mental health sometimes, because it's not your final design. You have to go on designing. You don't want to give up altogether. You don't want to get burned out. So maybe not think about that extremism yet, but then it's always best if you communicate with a person and you get a very clear, get where have the design go wrong, because sometimes that might also help in your next design, to know where have your where your natural placement of things has gone wrong. That will help you in another design as well. You get more approachable, your designs get more approachable to people. Yeah, so that's what basically I'd advise you to do.
Okay, okay. So now let's move on to some more technical stuff. You previously mentioned that you use Photoshop for designing. Like apart from that, do you use any other softwares? Because we notice your FB feed and Insta feed. Like you have done so much of artwork. Like do you use a different application for those, or do you use Photoshop itself?
Okay. Photoshop is like I'd say 90% of the time of my usage when it comes to graphic designing, it's Photoshop all the time. You can basically do anything in Photoshop. That it's common knowledge. Even stuff on Illustrator, you can make it in Photoshop. There are some setbacks, but then you can. Even like I don't even use InDesign, but I have made magazines just in Photoshop, and yeah, you can do almost anything in Photoshop, to be honest. But other than Photoshop, other than any suit packages, what other software that I'd like to give is suggest is for if you're an artist, if you are making an illustration of any sort, I'd say Coral Painter is really good in that manner. Basically, all my illustrations are made in Coral Painter. So I've seen people who make art in Photoshop as well. There are brush tools and everything in Photoshop, but Coral Painter is a very good alternative in that. Then also, if you are finding a free alternative for Photoshop, there is GIMP or GIMP. I don't know how to pronounce it because I never used it. Yeah, that's a free alternative for Photoshop, which I hear from many people that they've used, but it's not entirely replacing Photoshop. Then there is also like if you are into 3D modeling stuff, 3D rigging modeling and all sorts of stuff. Again, Photoshop, there is a 3D feature. I think I have I have Photoshop 2018, I guess. So there is a feature for there's a 3D feature there. So basically, apart from that, you can use free alternative like Blender 3D. Blender 3D also, I think it should be having a game engine, so you can actually make games, I guess. Like I'm not sure what happened to that part of things these days, because the last time I used Blender was somewhere around 2019. Then there are other softwares like for example, if you were doing animations, if you are into frame by frame animations, there is Pencil 2D. I use OpenToons. So OpenToons is good for frame by frame, and also there is rigged animation and everything in OpenToons as well. Just that I haven't done that yet, because I'm a lazy. I haven't seen you tutorials for that yet. So yeah, those are the softwares that I've used so far. And usually when it comes to flyer making publications, always it's Photoshop. It's like really easy. So I've heard this alternative from people using Canva. About Canva, yeah, it's cool. So yeah, that's what I have to say about alternatives.
Right. So with all these softwares, like how do you go about learning them? Like do you learn them in your free time, or do you learn while doing a task for a client?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most of the time, when it comes to learning, it's always advised like people to know the concept, know the tools before you start. So in my opinion, I'd say first have what you want to be the end product looking like at the end of your at your mind, and then start. For example, when I started Photoshop, I did not know most of the tools at all, but I saw a poster and I wanted that poster to be made by me being on the screen. So that's that end goal is what I had in mind, and I just discovered the tools by just exploring the software and finding it out. So usually when people make softwares, I think you guys are UCSC people, so basically you when you make softwares, actually when you're making like a software like a custom made software like Photoshop and everything, it's actually made to be approachable by people, right? So it's anyway people, even though there is a learning curve to it, you are being a person, being someone with common sense, you can actually figure out you can do a lot of trial and error before you even watch a tutorial. Okay, so this is how I learn. So basically I make a lot of errors, trial and errors. I just play around with the software first. For example, if I were in a Photoshop window, I will just see what's this clone tool doing, what is this layers doing. I'll just go to the windows, and there are so many ways where you can organize your your toolbars, your taskbars and everything. I'd see what are the options to save, what are the how to get vectors in, how to get text in, I'll just see what are the basics, just play around with the tools, and to see how do I get the most basic thing done there. And then you at your free time, maybe when you're eating or something, just go to YouTube or something, and then pop up some kind of a tutorial based on that application, and just see while you're eating. And then you get an idea. You see this person have clicked something, go into a place in that software that you find interesting, like that made an effect on the post, right? So you keep that in mind, and then you go back and you try to implement it. When it comes by naturally when you see tutorials most of your free times. I see tutorials in my free time, when I'm eating or something like that. I see people use software, for example, this is not Photoshop, basically. This is Unity. So Unity game level design, there is a YouTuber called Brackies. So Brackies, basically, he talks about game jams, how he designed the levels and everything, and all sorts of stuff. He just goes through the process of building the lightings for that platform and stuff like that. So I just watch that at the free time, and when I am at the window, I just basically remember like how he might have done it. And then if I mean, like, I already know what's in that video tutorial already. If I want to do that specific effect, I just go scrub through that YouTube window, scrub through that video timeline, and just get to that place and just use it, something like that. So basically, first, before you watch tutorials, the first thing you have to do in conclusion is to first do the trial and error, play around with the software. It's basically made for humans use it, so basically you can go wrong. That's no one's going to judge you for that. So first go nuts with the software, and then at your free time, once you really know you got your interest, watch tutorials. And then when you're doing a real project, scrub through the timeline and find the place where your specific thing is, and then you put it there, put it on your window. That's how it goes.
So, do you have any specific tips related to layer management? Because Thenuka said you were good at it specifically.
Okay, thank you, Thenuka. Basically, about layer management in Photoshop, that is, it's really difficult to get the concept of layers at first. Like it's like Google, like if you have Google Chrome, you have your tabs, right? You can sometimes group your tabs. So this is basically the same. Like in Photoshop, you have your layers. Just consider them just like the tabs, and you can group them, you can link them, and all sorts of stuff. Basically, your layer arrangement is what differentiates, from a novice, from a starter to a really good graphic designer, basically. So my tips for layer management is, to be honest, I'm not in a place to give advice about layer management because my layers are the worst. I don't even name some of them. And I've given my project to some people out of hurry, and I've done this a very rude thing of not labeling them properly, and being it an utter mess, and them being calling me back, and then I have to adjust it before that happened. So basically, don't be like me. So when it comes to layer management, first thing is, one thing you should know is it comes through practice. So I'd say you have to yeah, exactly. That's how I name my layers, if I were to name it. So the first thing that you need to keep in mind is first get that practice. Like when you have a desired effect in your mind, when you're going to implement the desired effect in your mind, your mouse will naturally work on the layers. So basically, your mind has to be on design. Layers will come by your way. You will arrange it to find a way that works. Okay, so when it comes to arranging your layers to create a design, that comes with practice. That you have to get by doing more designs, by getting inspired, by that's how you arrange that kind of, you get that kind of a layer arrangement. The place where I can advise, give you tips is how you present your layers. So to make it clear, so I'm not a graphic designer, like graphic design student or anything. I haven't been in a formal education of graphic design. I don't really know how they do it, but it's best if you can group your components and give them good names. So in my for example, if I make an infographic, I'm actually working on one right now. I'll group the main title and name them as main title and all capitals, and then I'll group certain like the lines that lead up to certain parts of the section of the post as as one, and name them as lines. And then the components, I'll give each name a component. Like, for example, this is the introduction, and this is where I give the statistics about the certain the disease or something like that, that is about that's included in the infographics. And so I give myself like the labels. And also you should make sure like your naming should be be your future friendly, right? So you are at the moment, and your future you should be thanking you for doing what you're doing right now, right? So basically you have to name your layer, and you have to organize your layer, link your layer, everything in that manner. As I am in the future right now, I would not thank the past me in most cases, but I'm just saying, if you were to design something, do something that in your future you would appreciate.
You said that like trying things out and trying YouTube tutorials and doing them like trial and error. So do you have any bad designs that you don't like?
Oh yes, a lot of them.
Would you like to share? Would you like to share?
Okay, since you asked, I'll just go through some of my designs. So bad designs, I do have a lot of those. I haven't presented my bad designs on my portfolio. That I would never do, because obviously I won't get into whatever I'm planning to by showing the portfolio. So I usually don't do that. In terms of bad designs, yeah, I have this one design.
I mean, you don't have to, it's like part of the
yeah, right. So I'll just show you one. I have a ton, to be honest. Not the I have my moments. So yeah. So this is I'm so sorry, Tenuka. This is one of the designs that I made when I first came into I'm so sorry for this. I'll just delete these two out. Okay, so this is one of the designs that I made the first time I came to this club. And I'd say this is an example of a bad design. I mean, a terrible design, that is. So basically you can see this, actually this I retrieved from an old PC. So basically some of the layers have been moved around and stuff like that. But this is an example of like the visual disturbance that it gives you of like these bubbles in the side, and this cake out of nowhere, and basically the this whole jarring box at the very center. I'm not calling Tenuka jarring, I'm just calling the box jarring. So yeah, so these are the I hope it's not, the rest of the things are not visible. Yeah, so those are that's a project that I've done, is an utter failure, but I kept on going with it and kept on using it anyways, because I did not have time to adjust or anything. So yeah, I have my bad designs, of course. That's just one of them. I have like a lot of bad designs I've made. For example, the first time I started off as a designer, basically, as I've told you before, I lied on a job interview. So the first designs I made are absolute trash. And my manager, like this, who was overseeing me, he was in disbelief. Like he was like, I thought you knew Photoshop. What the hell are you doing sitting here? And I'm like, right, okay, I'll try. And so it was, that was the entire conversation for like a week. And like he right away, he kind of understood that I'm kind of sort of a beginner. Actually got the job by telling that I am good at art, but then I was introduced to something called graphic design. Two big sectors. There's a big separation in between. So I first of all, don't lie in your interview, in your job interview or your job resume or anything. But that's one lie that actually got me here. So I'm happy for that. So, so at the designs that I made at the very beginning of that used to be really bad. The text are jarring right at your face. Colors are usually dark, like very dull, moody colors. That's what I always go for some reason. I try to make the background darker, to make the text appear more clear and stuff. Those kinds of techniques, like it does work in some contexts, but that's the thing that I always go for, and it's the worst. Then, just like I've shown just right now, a lot of visual disturbances in the post, like two color separations work, but sometimes the way that I've shown, that's an example of a bad thing to do. Yeah, those are the terrible design mistakes that I've made, and I still make them, to be honest. You still make, even though you get better, you get better at something. It doesn't mean that you're 100% error proof, 100% foolproof kind of thing, because you all are human. We all are human. So you always have you may have bad designs somewhere along the line. Kind of puts you into place as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of follow up. You were talking about portfolio, and not really a follow up, but something that popped into my mind when you were talking about this. You were talking about your portfolio, and I was just wondering how important it is to maintain. So I know, like, that's what you typically give if you're going to go for a job interview or something. But if graphic design is not really your primary, like we're doing science, or in our case, computer science. So how important is it to maintain a portfolio? Yeah.
Yes. So for the interviews that I've been, so at the very beginning you give them your CV, right? This is as a graphic designer, and usually the jobs that I applied are trainee graphic designer jobs, or like just normal graphic designer jobs. At the very beginning, like if you're in an like a trainee graphic designing position, they don't usually ask for your portfolios. Like that makes sense, that they don't need to ask you. But if you were to apply for like a job as a graphic designer, as the real thing, like in that places, they probably they might have a good chance of asking you previous works, and that's how they ask. In some places they just say portfolio, show me your portfolio kind of thing. So in that case, it's when you like most of the time when I've been to an interview, usually when I apply, the places where I have applied to, it's like a sort of a beginner kind of thing, like just a newly formed startup kind of thing. So I haven't seen a very strict environment per se, so I can't really tell how it's like, how your portfolio should be, what they expect and everything. But basically, usually when people in interviews, what I overheard, which I don't recommend, but which I overheard from the previous interviewees, is that when they were asked to present some of their older works, they just show their Facebook, what they've made and shared and stuff like that. So that's other people that I used to compete with. So I've seen that kind of a presentation. So that's the reason why having a portfolio and showing a portfolio makes you stand out, right? So as a graphic designer, graphic design, you don't get a whole lot of salary as a full-time job. That's being obvious. I've actually tried that very recently as well, and you're not going to get a lot from being there. So usually the people who are applying for it are who are considering this second-handedly, so they are not either in a graphic designing school to know that they need a portfolio or anything. So that's the place where your portfolio stands out, to be honest. When you're competing with people who are actually been to graphic designing school, chances are they are all having their own portfolio, and that like they are really built, they are super good. This person that I've told about, that I've started my job with, that I used, I just mentioned that I used to peep at a co-worker's work when she used to do. She was a graphic designing student, and she had a portfolio. She had it printed as well, and she had it on as a PDF as well. So she's a graphic design student. She's just starting off. I think she was a second year or something, and she was like really good. Like she had everything there so usually when you see a person who's actually done the degree, they have a full-fledged graphic designer portfolio. They have the best portfolio made ready. Some people have their websites, their own websites where they show their old work and stuff like that. So importance of a portfolio, when you're a designer, you absolutely need a portfolio. You need people to show your work in some way. So that's the only way is to give them a place where you can show all your process, your working and everything. So you need to have a portfolio. If you are to apply as a designer, since you are computer science students, I think for you guys, it's usually by design, you guys are referring to like UI design. And yes, of course, you need a portfolio for that. And I've seen some of the colleagues' portfolio on Behance as well, where they show your your UI UX works on their previous competitions, hackathons, designathons, and stuff like that. So of course you need a portfolio, and you need a really good portfolio. If you can't make a website that's time consuming for you, you can actually make a Behance portfolio, stuff like that. You can actually make a manual portfolio by yourself to show as a PDF or something. That's also possible. So that's how portfolios go. Basically, it's best if you are a design, if you're considering a career in design, it's best to have a very tip top looking place to showcase your skills.
Okay, so another question from me. This is on big picture stuff. So I think we touched on this earlier when you were talking at the very start, when you were talking about concepting for an event. So based on that, how do you go about maintaining consistency for events like that? So posts, you have to make sure that the layout is always the same. So when you're doing it on your own, I'm sure it's like pretty easy. But when you're working as a team, I know there are things like design guidelines and stuff like that. But yeah, it's an open-ended question. What do you do?
So to begin with, being in uni, there isn't a competition where I work with very strict design guidelines. Mostly they are kind of loose. There's this one competition where I worked with. I'll give the experience on that. So in that contest, being in the organizing committee on that contest, our design, usually we decided to go with 4 colors. So we started off at the very beginning of the contest planning to stick with those 4 colors. We designed the logo like that could fit those 4 colors, where you can put it on all 4 colors and still be visible. So that we made sure for the competition logo. Then for the the rest of the posts and everything that comes after, we decided on those 4 colors. Actually, that contest had 4 participation categories. So that's one of the reasons where we went with 4 colors. And then on the post making, we just kept those 4 color palette as reference at all the time. That 4 color palette was there at all drive folders, basically. Like it was there for all the designers. Every designers were given that, and that's a color they need to pick up with. There is an eyedropper tool. So basically use that tool and just those 4 colors, just use those 4 colors. And you can maybe add shadows, like black gradient, maybe a lighter gradient of that color. Those are like, you can do the depth work and all those things. But basically the idea is just those 4. The theme is the 4 colors. So that's how we started off. We set those 4 colors. So the color is a good start when you are, planning to make posts for a competition with a team. Give them the colors first, so they know. And the colors, and if there were categories, you can assign the colors to the categories. So in our case, we since we had 4 different participants, we gave one category a single color, or 2 colors combined. There can be different combinations of the 4 colors for these categories. So we did that. And even when you consider the posts that were made for this competition, actually when you be in a team that makes posts, when you put together people who make posts for a certain competition or anything, most of the time when it comes to a university setting like us, most of the time when the team identifies one skilled individual, that skilled individual will be made to do most of the work. If you are the unfortunate soul who are identified as that, you probably will be making the templates for the rest of the events. Basically, you'll be giving concepts, and most probably if the other team members were made to make posts by the team head, you will be the one who most probably will be called somewhere in the middle of the night saying, maybe you can you help them out with this? Can you adjust certain things of what your teammate does and stuff like that? So basically, if you are that one skilled person, you will be being put in so many different works when you're in a team, when you're in a designing team for a competition in a, like a university like us. So in a team like that, if you were like that, you probably either be making the templates most of the time, and you'll be making posts most of the time, so making adjustments most of the time. If you were that identified individual, the rest of the team members, usually like when you get a team, so since like technical skills is a little bit limited, you usually don't get people who are that skilled right away in your team. So most of them are there saying that they want to learn things. So the rest of the team who actually doesn't do much work usually gets work like maybe changing the text, changing the pictures. Maybe if you want to make a post saying that this is the contestant and their name, they change their work is basically to edit the name and make copies of that posts with changed names and stuff like that. So those simple tasks will be given to those kind of people, while the template is given to the one who can actually, one who is skilled. So because the outcome is what the most important for that team, right? So basically the outcome, however it's made, even at the expense of one person getting drained out to the absolute, that doesn't matter at the end. If you have a very beautiful looking feed about that certain competition, that's all that matters. So you basically drain that one person. Like this happens like almost 80% of the time, I guess. So that person will be drained out, while the rest actually gets to learn around. There people can have excuses and stuff like that, where one person is overused most of the time. This can be avoided if the entire team is skilled, but still that is not it does get piled to one person, either because that one person is skilled or that one person is very enthusiastic about that program. Those are the two reasons why one person get overloaded. So that happens when it comes to making posts in competition. So basically at the very beginning, you set your colors, you set your fonts and your style, and then you have that one overworking person identified. Like, I'm just saying that this is a toxic environment that you find in our university. So you find that one overworking person, you identify the rest of your team, you make that overworking person do the templates. The rest of the team follow up and maybe learn. In future competition, the rest of the team will get get their share of work when they finally catch up and learn. But for now, they learn from this person who is already very expertised or very enthusiastic about the program. And then you have a very beautiful feed, you have a very beautiful series of posts, and you come to the end of your marketing. That's how it goes.
Okay, so I think we're in a different category now. It's to do with your art, specifically your art. So I'm audible, right? Well, how do you find your own art style and that stuff? As in, there's several art styles that you follow. Like if I go to your Behance, wait, just show this. Like if I take these designs, like these ones are very abstract and sort of different, and so are these. But and then there's also stuff like that, right? And also entirely different cartoonistic stuff, right? So how do you learn all these, and what's your favorite style out of these, and including the ones that you did for Inktober, which were pretty amazing?
Thank you. So to learn all this, basically, when I look at my feed, what I see is a beginner's attempt at things. I wouldn't say these are polished works. Once, because I'm like we all are, being university students, we are extremely time limited. So in that case, I wouldn't say all of these are like polished, a very presentable work, but they are still in my portfolio anyways. But that's how I see it. And the next thing is where I get my idea from is basically, as I said before, places like Behance and stuff like that. Also, even in real life settings, like when I usually pass some kind of a when I pass in roads, we see billboards, we see posters on the wall. And when I see a wall, like maybe like a damaged wall, like a graffiti wall, tagged wall, when I see it, I see the texture and I see how spontaneous that looks. So that kind of gives me an inspiration for drawing an art. Basically when it comes to designing a post, usually you get your ideas from other people, you get your ideas from mostly other designers and Instagram and stuff like that. When you come to art, you get your inspiration, you get your ideas from real life setting, around the people around you, the environment around you. When you see chaos, you get inspired by that chaos. So basically in is it shadow? Yeah, so right in front of me I see a very messy table, right? So actually this messy table, to be honest, inspires me. And the way I see things are right now, like over on top of each other, actually gives me an idea where I can stack two objects on top of each other to create an art. So basically, as you might see, the first artwork that shows is the result of that kind of chaos, that kind of stacking things on top of each other. And like as you can see the eye, like at the first art piece, you can see the eyeball right at the front, and then you see her hand holding it, and then the rest of the settings. So basically art involves chaos, like that is something like you're expressing something, right? That thing that you're expressing can be chaos, can be some kind of a movement. That movement mostly comes from you, mostly comes from how your environment was when you were like when you grow up, when you see. That's why it differs from, that's why art styles differ from people to people. So actually basically when it comes to art, that's how I do. Like basically I get my ideas from around me. And as for different styles of art, that is I'd say basically it's some sort of a glorified copy. So the artwork that I see right below the like the green lady art right there, that's basically me copying some other designers way of thinking. Like, so I see that person minimalizing human bodies to make it look like that, and I see that person being inspired by natural bodies, how it looks, and that person has given unnatural colors to mask a person's skin color. So maybe it's like to avoid political opinions or something. Maybe it's like to create some kind of that color gives some kind of an idea or some kind of a thought, some kind of that color has a different kind of a psychology to it compared to our natural skin color. So those ideas that I've seen that another artist had in their project inspired me to create that kind of a project in my, like, to do something like that by my own. And then the other two that you see here, the gray ones, basically the one that of this human, and then the other tiger, though these were like the early works of mine when I first came into when I first started using my graphics tablet. So I was getting used to myself, used to holding it. So basically that's the tiger, like the cheetah tiger thing that right there. So that's basically how that's basically revolving around realism kind of thing. I was going for that thing. I wouldn't say it looks realistic, but it was 2 years back, and I was going for that realistic approach. I would see how far I can go by sitting for a long time, for like jabbing my bamboo on my graphics tablet for long, how far it takes. That's how like those two are made. So basically that's how my art styles vary. Basically it's through experimenting, maybe it's through maybe a kind of a copying kind of thing from another person, seeing and getting inspired by another person. So when I get inspired, it changes, the art style changes. And like when you actually naturally, even though like however you might copy someone, your own energy, your own vibe comes into your art by default. You, maybe that's the way your hand is designed, maybe that's your muscle memory or something, maybe that's how your thought process work or something like that. You will get to a point where your touch comes into an art you copied from another person. I mean, like an idea you copied from another person. So yeah, that's basically how I have so many I have tried so many styles, the flat and all the rest of it.
Cool.
Yeah, you said your vibe comes into your art. You can really see that. You're a cool vibe. Cool art. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so another question about art, but also kind of related to design. How often do you bring your own original art into designs that you do for posts or events or anything? And how do you go about doing it?
Okay, so this I'd like to thank you for asking this question, because that is kind of rare in my opinion. I mean, I haven't found a place where I used my art into posts, but there is this one occasion, like one recurring occasion, I'd say. So this is me making something called Gavel Toons. So basically it's a comic series that I've made for this club in our university. So basically that's a place where like this happened during last year. So that's a place where my art, my pen skills came into use with my graphic designing. So basically, I wouldn't say it's it's a peak of the graphic design part. I'd say because it's just for boxes, and then the title, and then the bubbles and everything. It's basically text layering out. It is graphic designing, but the most basic of it. But it actually is it's one of the occasions that I can actively remember where my pen skills came into use with the designing skills. So that's one occasion, and apart from that, graphic designing and my art hasn't come together in most places. Actually, that's a good. It actually sounds like something that I should be doing, but something that's rarely being done by me. And usually when I'm a bioscience degree, I'm doing my bioscience degree. So basically we have places where we need to make flow charts, we need to make infographics and stuff like that. In that cases, yeah, sometimes the arrows, those things I used to take my brush tool and my brush tool in Photoshop and then my pen and do. But I wouldn't say that's art. That's just using my pen tool for the graphic design purpose. Otherwise, I don't find an instant where my art comes into much of a use, because maybe it's not relevant, or I feel it's too much of an effort to make just a simple flyer most of the time. So for that case also, like, I don't usually draw to make graphics. I usually see them as, I usually try to make within like 1 or 2 hours at the max, but sometimes rut hits you and it goes for long. But then best I don't find an instant where art comes into play with my graphic design, except for the Gavel tool part.
Yeah, I remember reading those and they were pretty good. I have to ask, was that like your idea completely, or did someone, like, I don't know, help you out with the concept? It was really good. Yeah, I like that.
About Gavel toons, yeah, like that is one thing I pitched but got me into a position in the club. Yeah, that was maintained by me, and yeah, that's one.
Question where, like, there's a huge dilemma about, like, I'm having this my, whenever I draw something, I have this inner voice saying, if I like have a reference to start drawing, I feel like there's this inner voice telling, no, that's cheating, that's not fair, that's art theft. So what are your thoughts on it, like having references when drawing?
Yeah, I have this exact problem. Where I don't use art references from another person to start something that I feel kind of not appropriate for some reason. So what I do is basically usually when I consider references, I usually go for real life subjects. For like maybe like real life models. I just Google stuff to see like how they are how they are positioned, how their bodies looks like, and stuff like that. I do not go for art references. It's a good place to learn, but not to make finished arts. So I do not make something that I would post from someone else's art, like looking at someone else's art. I might have had done that when I was a kid, like when I was like way before. So that usually like when you usually see someone else's art and you feel like I need to make something like this, right? So that's how you basically you have a you actually keep that in one side when you make your art. So you can cheat, but as long as it's like not very apparent, you have your own touch to it, then you can do it. Yeah, you can have your art reference at the style at your mood board, showing that that's the mood that you're going for. And then you have your rest of your in the mood board, you have the rest of the stuff like textures that you have to go for the certain character. Like if you're doing a character, basically if you're drawing character based on another person's art, because usually when you draw some, for example, if you're going to draw some kind of a character that from a video game or something like that, you actually the person doesn't exist, right? So basically you have to rip it off, you have to get the costume idea and rip it off from another person's art, usually the the game studios art. So basically you have it on one side, you have your thing on a mood board instead of the actual reference that you are kind of getting your position and everything from. It can go, it's a mood board material, not a like a real reference kind of material. So basically you keep it on a side where you can see to get where your inspiration, where your motivation come from. And then you have the rest of the stuff in your mood board, like your texture, the clothes, like what are the texture you're going to apply for the clothes, the lighting and everything. So yeah, you can do that. That kind of thing can be done. As for copying some other's art exactly like it is, like that is good when you're learning only, not when you're making a final product. That is yours. It should be under yours. Do not publish something for that kind of thing. Maybe you can learn from that, because people have different ways to learn things. So that's an acceptable way to learn and keep it yourself, kind of thing. I know you're proud, but then another person's intellectual property is something really important to respect and stuff. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Right. So coming to some random questions. Yeah, this is fine. Is there anything that you don't like about graphic designing?
Well, it's a love-hate relationship, to be honest. There is a lot of things that I hate about graphic designing. Starting with when your PC lags when you are resizing something. So that is what I'm currently going through. As you might have seen, my PC went off, and that's because I have some kind of a problem being identified recently. What happens is, like, I'm making a big project, right? I'm working on something like a very huge file load right now. So I tried clearing caches and everything, but it's still there. When I resize, it lags. So when it lags, when you resize, you press shift and you make it bigger in Photoshop to keep its proportions intact. But then due to the lag, when you leave your shift or your mouse, I don't know which, if you leave it one before the other, your thing got skewed. It looks flat or it looks stretched, and it gets on your nerves. I probably might need a break from that. So that's one of the things that in graphic design that gets on my nerves. Another thing is when seeing other people's work. So actually I respect everyone's creativity. They're trying, they have good creativity, everyone has their own style. When they use default fonts that are already in Photoshop, like fonts that are default in your computer, like for example, I'd say century Gothic, Times New Roman, Baskerville, Papyrus, Chiller,
Comic Sans.
Comic Sans. Oh God. Oh, don't even get me started on Comic Sans. Papyrus, there was a whole SNL skit on Papyrus, I think. It's a whole comedy skit where, like, the Avatar movie, they use Papyrus font for the Avatar for no reason. I mean, like, actually, they reasoned it out saying that's not actually Papyrus, but you know, it looks similar to Papyrus, so it's still their own fault. So those fonts, like when people use Century for some graphic designing work, it is the worst. Don't use that on for if you have Photoshop. Don't use the default fonts that are already there. You can download fonts. There are a lot of font sites that you can download things from. You might have already known, like I think there's even, like, obviously there is Google Fonts. You can get all sorts of fonts and their variants and stuff like that. That's a basic, that's a best place to start from. And then you have 1,001 free fonts, fonts curious, stuff like that. So you have a lot of places where you can actually download new fonts. There are always fonts coming by, I guess. So, you know, fonts is one thing that, another thing that, can you hear that? Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, that fonts, yeah, fonts is one of the important things. Where was it? Ah, yeah, the fonts. Yeah, fonts. Fonts, don't use default fonts. And the getting stuck, getting lagged. The other thing about graphic designing that I hate is editing some other person's graphics, some other person's posters. Because that's another thing that gets on my nerves, because like when I see someone else's way that they have done the post, usually when I make posts, when I make lighting and stuff like that, I do it really simple. I don't do a lot of layers, because like for one, I try to make it like within a short period of time. It's just a flyer and stuff like that. But and when I get some people's design, I see a lot of Gaussian blurs after blurs after blurs after blurs, then lighting and stuff like that. And overcrowding, you can just get that background downloaded from Google, like as it is. You don't need to even make it like yourself. But that person just spent so much time for a post that you're going to get like 17 likes on a site. I mean, I appreciate the effort, but then, you know, then if you don't have it layer, I mean, like you don't have it grouped, that's another thing. So working on another person's project is something that I would never do. I would just try to give them, you know, adjustments by verbally, but not try to use my mouse anywhere near that kind of thing. Because they are the one who knows it best. I don't want them to explain to me, and then I don't like, even when I give my graphics to someone else, I feel sorry for that, because my flow of my way of arranging things is different from what they might be anticipating, like that they would get. So I don't really want them to, you know, go through the stuff. Like I know everyone gets pissed off, so even I don't really like to give my work to another person to make them edit it. So that's one thing. Another thing is, like, even though I hate to edit some people's project, it's difficult to give them instruction through your mouth. It's difficult to advise them to do certain adjustments by mouth, because they do the exact opposite sometimes. At that place, you feel like it's like moving a mouse using your mouth. Okay, so that you can just basically do it with your hands when you get that project, right? So that's there is a place where you have to decide between the two, whether you get the project from them and do it, and you know, then go to therapy afterwards, or like give them the instructions and, you know, get them on their nerves. So that one thing that actually I hate about graphic designing. And the other thing, like those three things are the most important ones. The other thing is like, it's mostly on me, is I don't know what to do knowing graphic designing. Like I mean, it's obvious, it's everywhere, but then still you don't know how to make a career out of it now. I don't have any career out of graphic designing at the moment, so I really don't know how to go for it. Not that I'm searching for it, but then it's how that, you know, that actually doesn't work out right away for most of the people. So that kind of a steep place where people find it really difficult to get there to make a solid career out of graphic design because there is a lot of competition. That's one thing that I hate in graphic designing. I mean, that's, you have to digest the fact that it's like that. Yeah, so those are things that I hate about the graphic designing.
I wanted to ask you something because I personally suck at font pairing different fonts, especially when you're going for a theme. We are working under a theme and they give you this main font and then you have to come up with suitable font for the rest of the elements on the post. So do you have any tips on that?
Okay, so for this, what I do is usually on Instagram, there are some accounts. So there are some pages to follow, like I think it's a type inspiration, type inspo, something like that. So I check it for once. But there are some usually good places where you can follow on Instagram, where they show posts on font pairing. So usually like there is like Gotham Anton, Bebas with something else, Sidul something else, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of inspirations where you can get from Instagram when it comes to font, because usually I see a lot of type inspirations from Instagram, and there are like lot of crazy type inspirations in Instagram where basically typing is like art. So they make art out of letters. They make that expression out of letters. So that expression is what you get it from places like Instagram. Behance is actually really you wouldn't go exactly to Behance all the time at first. Usually you scroll through Instagram most of the time. So I'd recommend you to follow those kind of type inspiration profiles on Insta. So that's a good place to start, where to get ideas from, to get inspiration from. The other thing about fonts is usually on your to get better at font work is at your free time go through the font sites. Okay, so I usually on my free time go through Fonts Curio and all those sites. I just scroll and see what other fonts are there. Yeah, that's Elavalu selling that there. So so you go through your font sites and you see what are the new, like the old fonts there are. So when you see all those fonts, you get that idea, right? So that's one way of getting idea. If you are limited, if you're given a set of fonts to work with, like just 2 or 3 fonts to work with, and if they are all bland sans serif fonts that you can't even find the difference between one another, one thing is you can talk with the you can talk with the person. I'm terribly sorry for this, but it's okay. You can talk with the person who is giving you that the suggestion and giving you the constraints for that thing. Or if the person is not able to talk, for example, if you are in some kind of you're following a branding guideline which you can't change by any means. So the branding guideline says you have to just use Frutiger font, you just have to use Poppins. These are the 2 fonts that you have to use, nothing else. In that case, basically you can't negotiate or anything, so you can't change your font preferences. But you have to stick with those. That case where you have to stick with those, there are a lot of things about font that you can change, about type you can change, that would make big differences. For example, the font size. This is like really obvious things that I'm about to say. Font size, changing font sizes to give emphasis would actually go a long way. Then to change the font styles, like to be italicized, bold, these are obvious. So those give a different kind of an emphasis. Then there is a place, then you can adjust the like the letter spacings. So letter spacing is something that I do a lot of times when I want to change the feel of a font. Usually when I just like, for example, when I work with Gotham, if I just get Gotham to work with, what I do is I just make everything small and just increase the letter spacing and just put it at the very bottom of the post. So it creates like the very spaced out, very mysterious, eerie vibe to that post. It gives the post a big environment. So that is just Gotham font right there. And you can, people make the same font, you can give it to different people. They will make different things out of it based on the font size, the letter spacing, and their font style, and all sorts of those kind of stuff. So basically, yeah, we can work around on the same font in so many different ways, like with all those options, right? There is one time when I had to make a post where it's just a, it should be a very plain post basically. So the only font that I've been recommended to work with was just use a very simple serif font. So serif font is the one which has the overhanging part, like, for example, Times New Roman. For example, it has, for the T, it has a little bit of a, on the both sides, and at the very bottom there is a small thing sticking out. So that is a serif. Without those sticking out part, it's sans serif font. So I got I had an option to work with, I think it's Gotham and a serif font. So basically I just wrote out the main text in Gotham, and that one part I just used a serif font, and maybe just use a line to underline and stuff like this. So basically, there's a lot of things you can work around with same to make a font look like a different thing, to make it look different. You can even try things like underlining the font using a line. You can even try putting the font against a small, like a curved rectangle, with changing the color of the font. And you can give different inverted environments to the font, colors. There's so many things to change in a font when you get to work with it. So even though if you're limited, you still have options, because you ultimately it's Photoshop. You have your options. You have shadows. So yeah, you have those.
So I saw your feed, your Instagram feed, and you had done the Inktober, which is amazing, by the way. How do you keep yourself motivated? Like, what made you do Inktober, basically?
Basically, talk about my Instagram feed. It's basically all art. It's basically the one that I started off as Inktober, which I did not finish. I could not finish due to I just left it off. So I was lazy.
You've done a considerable amount. So.
Yeah, I think I went up to 14, 12. I don't know, something like 12 days, I guess. Something around that. And then I was like, okay, I think I have assignments to catch up. So let's not do it. I don't want to fail this semester. So I left, I left that at half. So basically, Inktober is one thing that inspired me to fill up my feed until that, to be honest. Before that, my feed did not have artworks, but it just had like one video on it. So basically, Inktober is where I drew for every day, basically from day one to the set date that I stopped. So every day I set a time, and then I sit down and work. Usually I try to do some kind of a sketch within 1 to 1.5 hours. Usually it goes for like 3 to 4 hours. So when you're doing something creative, you get a rut, you get all sorts of, it slows down your other works as well, because your brain works differently. It's difficult to switch task from a creative task to a your academics or your technical stuff. So that switch is difficult. That's why I had to stop Inktober as well, because me doing that art and then going back to my academics, I really couldn't. After finishing the art, I feel so drained that I just sit down for a while, just stare at something else, and then I wonder how am I going to do it for another day, kind of thing. So that is there. So 12 days, yeah, it went on. I powered through like I thought I could, and basically that's inspiration wise. Where I get my inspirations from is like, because it's coming the day after day after day. Basically, I did not have time to look at any other people's artwork for that. So I just came up with those ideas. So basically, Inktober is to encourage you to think in a way, encourage you to express yourself. So I would say that's a form of expression by myself. So what went through my brain at that time is what I drew as pictures. So yeah, so that's for inspirations I do that. And for the colors I've chosen for the artwork is something that before I start on the artwork, I just go to the site called colors with the double O, and I just press space bar, just spam the space bar until I find a nice color palette, and then I download it. Then I start on my artwork. So that's how I start. Usually when I make graphics, the first thing that I do is to start with the colors. So even at a project or anything, first thing I do is to get a color palette. So even in Inktober, I discovered that became like a very apparent habit for me, that I discovered that this is what how I get started in something. So even like the project that I'm working on now, I couldn't actually start it without actually knowing what the color is going to look like. So every day I would start off by taking the colors, and then just thinking, just looking for real life studies, like models, and then looking at them, and then trying to draw them, then changing their skin colors and stuff like that. So that's basically what it looks like in the cross section of.
It's interesting. Yeah. Like how you
Final question.
powered through it, like that's the most important part, I guess. Like we struggle with like keeping up with the like powering through. Like I would like make basically one or two and probably then give up. Yeah, setting a proper timetable and doing it is like very important, I guess.
The only human.
Sorry for interrupting you. Okay, final question. Do you prefer working in groups or individual? I think we all know the answer for this, but
Oh yes, of course. Individually, by a lot. When it comes to designing, everyone wants to, you can't argue with people. When it comes to designing, it's, the creative side of your head. So you can't argue with another person's creative side of the head, because that's something that you need to give respect to. So in that case, group projects are always, you have that kind of a conflict. You really can't, when you criticize someone, you have to watch what you say, and you have to, it's a matter of communication when it comes to group, because commenting someone based on their creativity, their art, their expressions is always there's a problem. Even like this I've read when I was a kid. I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, but there is this artist called Monet Claude. So his art style was new at the time. It's called Impressionism, where he expressed the movement through brush strokes or something. So when it first came into, when he first put it out as a show, it was like first critiqued so much. So that actually discouraged the artist a lot. But then he's now established. Yeah, he had a floating studio and all sorts of stuff. His arts are like famous, for example, like the water lilies and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's one example. You can actually you can never know when someone's form of creativity would come something mainstream, something that everyone would appreciate. People are different. So when it comes to group work, you always have that kind of conflict, internal conflict most of the time, because it's really difficult to communicate. When you open your mouth, it's going to be criticism. So group works are like it's a little bit a sticky situation, but it's a good thing to learn being in a group. But if you even in a group, most probably you'll end up overloading one designer with the stuff. Actually, if you are a designer, you should be used to getting overloaded. That's by default, and that also because like if you're a designer, that means you're interested in designing, so you actually naturally put everything towards you as well. You have that tendency as well. So basically, even though you work in a group environment, it will naturally tend towards more of an individual working by my own, because it's the inspiration that I get from people. It's my own thought process. It's me being expressed. But I don't like people sharing their art. I would not say art and design are same thing. Design means designs give functionalities. So I would not say there are actually people like you work together for a design, to be honest, to a design to work. I would not say group work is a I would not discourage group work. Group works are actually good. It actually does not put a mental toll on people. It's good to divide roles. If they are properly divided, if the communication happens properly, group projects for graphic design, I mean like any designing projects, is the best. Is the communication should be there, and it's like the best. But individual is like when you need to express yourself, when you need to show that you have done the work by yourself, to to give the credit to your own self. The individual is good in that manner. I would not put anything over top of each other. Would not put anything down. Both are really great. Designing is great on overall. So yeah, but I prefer to work by my own. Yeah, that's probably something wrong with me, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know Vinod said it was the last question, but I must slip this in. It's not related to design at all. Dula Acharya said that you watch anime. So what's your favorite anime? Because a lot of us here like it too.
Oh, okay, anime fans. Okay. I wouldn't say like I'm that much of an anime fanatic, but I like Death Note. It's cool. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I think then we can wrap up if no one else has anything random to ask. So I think it's safe to say that we learned a heck of a lot, and your insights and your thought process is really fascinating. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And thanks for being here, despite all the design and academic you have to, I'm sure you're putting off right now. And I hope that we can start physically and meet you soon and maybe treat you to some ice cream because yay, ice cream. And to everyone on YouTube watching this, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed and do leave a like. Yeah, bye. See you next time.